We're having energy conversations today. We just heard from Nganga, who was talking about the conference that's going to be taking place next month in Nairobi, the Africa Climate Summit, and he talked a lot about renewable energy and why we need to think about renewable energy. And actually, even before we start investing more and more into the fossils, we look at, okay, how are our renewables working? Andrew Amadi is our next guest in the Situation Room. He is the CEO of KEREA. The thing.
Otherwise known as KEREA. AKA KEREA.
Yes. Kenya Renewable Energy Association, KEREA. Andrew, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's the hot seat of the Situation Room. Asante sana for joining us to talk about renewable energies, and our topic and what you actually proposed was something that is just raising the alarm bells. Kenya could be heading the South Africa route very soon. Which is this? What do they call them in South Africa?
Load shedding.
Load shedding. Power rationing. Rationing. Power rationing.
Load shedding.
We're going to power rationing soon, and that's why Andrew is here. Let's talk about renewable energies and how our energy mix is looking. Welcome to the show. Siti Muga will give you the day's proverb.
Proverbs for the whole of this week, ending tomorrow, are from the country of Burkina Faso, formerly known as Upper Volta. But there it is a population of around 23 million people. They are not few.
23 million?
Yes.
Okay.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Ants surround the dying elephant.
Now this is Siafu. When I say ant or ant, I'm not referring to someone's auntie.
Can you say ant or what?
Ant. I'm referring to Siafu. Mpate, jue.
Siafu.
Okay. Si auntie.
Okay.
Shangazi, nope.
Not the elephant's aunties.
No. Surrounding him.
No.
Yes.
Okay. Andrew, what do you make of this proverb? What's your interpretation of it?
It's I'll connect it to energy. It's about planning. So the signs are there. Let's call it the data is in. The elephant is down. So of course the ants are anticipating that there's a work to be done. There's a meal. There's something that's going to be. Their services will be required. So it's just about planning and matching actions to the plan. Yeah.
So funeral committee for the elephant.
It's not pleasant, but we have to plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Introduce us to the Kenya Renewable Energy Association.
So the Kenya Renewable Energy Association is an umbrella body that promotes the use of all types of renewable energy in Kenya. So KEREA, the thing, as now you have named it, I think that will stick better, was founded in 2002. It was actually from the technical committee that was developing standards for solar equipment. And they thought, you know what, we'll have the standard, but enforcement is going to be a thing of us doing what we agreed to. So they created the association, and that's how it started. And KEREA has worked a lot in the background. Most notable was a project started in 2006 called Lighting Kenya. And it grew in 2009. They brought in Ghana, and it became Lighting Africa. And it was then that Joseph, who just left the studio, and we formed a business, and we were bringing in solar lanterns, one of the first to do so. So this was the brainchild that came out of KEREA. And today, by today, I mean December 31st, 2022, Kenya is still the largest market for off-grid solar products in the world.
What?
Market meaning to sell from Kenya or to
sell
bring in
Kenya. To sell in Kenya. So if you go by category, you will find solar TVs. Kenya is the biggest market in the world for solar TVs. People have been going off-grid, using off-grid applications. We have integrated solar home systems into the national electrification strategy. So because of that, there's been a lot of appliance-driven demand. And last year, Kenya sold more appliances even than India or Nigeria, who are second and third.
So who are the members of the association again?
So the members of the association are companies that are involved in renewable energy. We are founding members such as Davis and Shatliff, Solar Chloride. We have got engineering companies that are involved in solar, such as WG Stan, Area Finergy. We work with academia, so we've got lots of people who are there in their individual capacities, from universities, from government. So it's basically open to anybody who has an interest in promoting renewable energy.
You know, I have to ask this question because what you're saying is not just music to my ears. It's very soothing music to my ears and to my soul. Meaning, we are leading the whole globe, yani, world, Earth.
Yes.
To win a gold medal.
To win a gold medal, it is us.
Yeah.
But these things that we lead in, do we produce them? Do we source them from somewhere? What's the mix?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So what we are leading in is in the consumption of these appliances and these technologies. So a lot of them, for the most part, are imported whole or brought in as a kit that is assembled, such as a solar home system or a standalone system. For example, if you want to charge batteries for bikes, you can get that as a module. So we are basically in the consumption side. So we've been looking, there's an initiative called the Africa Renewable Energy Manufacturing Initiative, where we're looking at it from a value chain perspective and saying, we're starting to ask the questions, can we be able to produce some of these technologies or components of some of these technologies? So for example, for electric bikes, we can assemble them completely. We already have the capacity. We're just not putting in an engine, we're putting in a battery and a motor. So that's the first step. Then the second step is to look at the consumables. Can we be able to produce some of this? Can we produce bumpers? Yes, we can. We can be able to, that's a molding machine. It can be done. It can be, so do we have the raw materials for this kind of production? So in looking at it holistically, we are saying that in order for us to be sustainable, because we haven't even started to climb up the demand curve that is possible. When we start to climb up that demand curve, we will create such a huge need, and this will also become an opportunity.
Explain this demand curve, meaning? Because I thought we already climbed it. If we are the leading in this consumption,
Yes.
that has to do with demand.
Yeah.
We make it possible for those who supply to bring it.
Yeah.
So essentially, that concept has been proved by us.
Yes.
There is need for it because we are consuming it and we keep consuming.
Yeah.
So this demand curve is...
So the demand curve is this. Let's look at Kenya's population. We are, call it 53 million people. Let's look at, we are number 27 in the world.
In terms of?
In terms of population.
We are?
27
In the world?
in the world.
27th most populous nation.
27th most populous nation in the world.
In the world?
Yes.
If it was an exam, so we are 27 out of?
194, 196.
Okay.
27 being
we are
closer
top
to 1
30,
being
but-
the highest CT.
We are top
That
30.
is India.
We're in the top 30.
Yes.
Out of 197.
Yeah.
We're doing very well here.
But now let's look at number 26 on the list is South Africa. They're just maybe 3 or 4 million more than us. Look at their electricity demand. It is 50,000 megawatts and it's not enough. Look at our peak electricity demand is 2,200 megawatts.
Sorry. Again? Where? Please repeat the statistics.
So
again.
let's say South Africans 54 million.
50, yes.
Their peak electricity demand is
Over 50,000
megawatts.
megawatts.
So
Kenya 50 million. Our peak electricity demand is
2,200.
So wait, their output is 54 million.
demand.
No, their
population.
population is 54 million.
That's the population.
Yes.
And the megawatt thing
Is the electricity demand at peak what
Is-
they're using?
is
How much
54?
they want, how much they need.
They
is
need
54.
50,000.
50,000 megawatts. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So when we're talking about that, then would you be able to connect and say 50,000 megawatts at peak demand, that is contributed to by industry largely? Because it's not your run-of-the-mill, put on the light and switch on the iron fridge kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we're saying that industry-wise, they're using a lot more because they're producing a lot more manufacturing, right?
Bingo. Exactly.
Okay.
So we are in consumption, and we have been in consumption, and now we are consuming the maximum. Almost, we are at over 80% connectivity to electricity. That's when you combine the grid and you combine the off-grid, mini-grid solar home systems. So we are at over 80%. People have electricity for lighting. At the very least, they can charge their mobile devices.
Okay.
So when we go to the next phase,
Yes.
is production.
Okay.
So when we point this energy at production, then you start to see a very strong correlation between the peak demand and the per capita GDP.
Okay. Now, from where this conversation is going today, and we're saying, okay, there is a possibility that Kenya could go the South Africa way.
Yeah.
In terms of load shedding, maybe in some months. What essentially you're saying is that then Kenya also could get more into manufacturing, and the industry capacity, that level would start to rise. Also, coupling with what you've said previously, that Kenya can do a lot of these things, getting into industry, fixing here, producing 1, 2, 3. But my question is, number one, why isn't that happening at that level? Why are we not seeing this production in terms of manufacturing and industry, one? And then capacity-wise, for this energy that's needed, it is available, is it not? So why are the two not meeting?
Yeah, that's the heart and soul of the work that we are doing currently, because we have been involved in the consumption phase where we were looking at access as the indicator. 75%, 100% is the target. We still talk about access. So now we've said, okay, wait a minute. Now that we have access, what can we do further with this electricity? And that is where now we say, can we point it towards production? Can we be able to be more predictable? At the same time, we are reacting to the effects of climate. So we're getting drought more often. So more drought means more sun, less water. So can we pump water from the ground, treat it, and use it for irrigation? Because that will solve the food security problem. How many boreholes can be done over what period of time? 750,000. How long can it take to be able to deploy? When you do that, then you have kick-started an entire or several value chains of production.
It may seem simplistic in questioning, but you've said, can we pump water from the ground and use it for irrigation? Can Kenya do that?
Yes, we can.
Why is it not happening?
It's happened. Well, there are barriers. Number one is that we are not aware that we can. That's the biggest problem.
Sorry.
Yes.
No, really?
You know, we really need to go back here.
Okay.
I'm a bit slow.
Today?
Always, yes. When it comes to some of these things, my brain sort of like, there's a point at which it ceases. So I need to understand. We can't do what with water?
He said, we don't know that we can actually take water, pump water from the ground, right?
Use it for irrigation.
And use it for irrigation.
Using?
Solar. So there's drought, right? Water's dried up, but the sun is in plenty. Kenya does not know today that you can, or people, the practitioners in those areas, or anybody across the board, doesn't know.
Citizens of Kenya.
Doesn't
or
know
rather,
that you
they
can
know the barrier. When you go to a person, everybody will say, okay, solar pumping water makes sense. Then you tell them, okay, how much is a pump? 110,000. That's
Kwisha.
the
Stops
end of
there.
that conversation.
Kwisha.
But you know, it doesn't actually even stop there. Because there's a commodity we seem to have in plenty. They're called aquifer. Yani, ile maji ambayo imekaa chini ni nyingi. Turkana is famous for it. Then there's this process it's called desalination.
Yeah.
From the little, I read very little, but the little that I've read tells me that you can use solar to do this very same thing.
Correct.
And we have so much solar, we don't know what to do with it. In fact, if you go to Turkana, there is so much sun. It's unbearably hot most times.
I did a calculation for the fun of it.
Yes.
If you used 1% of the area of Turkana County,
1%,
put it under solar panels, generate electricity, sell it at 12 shillings per unit. Compared to Kenya Power, you're buying at 32 shillings a unit, sell it at 12 shillings per unit. you will make as much money as the oil in the ground in 1.5 years.
So why isn't it happening?
Barrier.
Again, what are these barriers?
Barrier.
So
Costs, capital costs. Because you've got solar farms. We have a solar farm in Garissa. We have a solar farm in Eldoret. Why don't you have a solar farm in
Turkan.
what's missing is the application. It's not enough to generate electrons. You have to be pointing it at something. So our systems planning is kind of disjointed. So you have the National Treasury that's looking at finances, you have energy, you have environment, you have all these different units. But when you bring it down, if you follow energy, then you find that energy does not stop at the meter. It goes to the consumption, it goes to providing a service. So if you look at energy from a service perspective, then now you start to go into why this is not happening. And why it's not happening, again, it's the awareness that people don't know that, for example, that you don't have to buy a solar panel outright, that you can pay for the electricity. You can contract somebody and say, I will pay you 18 shillings per kilowatt hour. I don't put up any capital expense and I get electricity
But
connected.
there'll be a barrier, won't there?
There are always barriers.
Because if I'm creating electricity, let's say I have the means to, and I want to do exactly, essentially I become a retailer. Okay? There'll be a barrier.
Does the law allow me to do that?
Yes, it does. I can. It's even if you look across the street, if you go anywhere here in industrial area, there are solar panels on all industries.
Yeah.
They haven't paid upfront. They've just worked on the differential between the cost of electricity during the day from Kenya Power versus the cost of solar on a tariff that a third party puts their money and says, I will wait for 20 years to get this. So there are independent
So
power
there are
producers.
investors who are
Yes.
actually doing this,
There are
And it's
over
already
30 of
happening in
them in
Kenya.
Nairobi.
who've come and installed this capacity,
Yeah.
and you agree on a tariff,
Yes.
and this is allowed.
Yes.
Is this what we call a mini grid, or is it different?
No,
thing?
this is captive power.
It's captive power.
Yeah.
And of course, as the Association of Renewables, you encourage such to happen.
Yes.
So does it make money?
Yes, it does.
But after 20 years?
No, it depends on your financial structure. Number one, if you're in energy, energy is a long game. So you think long-term investments. Energy is volumes, not margins. So you look at how to be able to create the kind of volume. Today, a solar panel and a smart meter can be deployed anywhere. And you have data. And you can aggregate and organize this data so that you can have visibility. So looking at it from the models and from what has been running for the last 14, or actually from about 2011,
Yep.
that's when we reached grid parity with solar. So there's a lot of data to be able to support this, that people are able to get back their full investment in about 5 to 7 years, 8 years, depending, of course, on at what cost did you buy and what tariff are you selling.
Okay.
So there is a return on investment.
Yep.
It's predictable.
Yep.
And it's over 18%.
Can we look at currently what's happening in the country? Because the conversation about alternative sources of power has been, there. And from what you're saying now, well, okay, it can be done, but, yeah, okay.
It is being done.
It is being done, but not to the capacity or not to the levels whereby we can say it's competing with your other source, right? Let's look at Kenya today. What is the main form of power that is being generated and consumed today? It's
Geothermal.
geothermal, all right?
Yeah.
What would be a cheaper, more sustainable form of power in Kenya today?
Biomass.
Biomass.
Sustainable biomass.
Sustainable biomass.
What is
Actually-
biomass?
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
What's biomass?
Bioenergy.
What is it?
Energy that comes from biological beings. Charcoal, firewood, briquettes, biogas. That's bioenergy. Nature's storage. Energy comes from the sun. Through photosynthesis, it's converted into carbon. That's bioenergy.
What is the conversation around this right now? And is it being done? Have we been able to test capacity and test levels? as a more desirable form of energy for consumption or for generation?
Well, the conversation has been a difficult one to have, because number one is that we are conditioned to think of wood fuel as bioenergy. And then we look at wood fuel in Kenya and it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So we switch off that conversation. Number two is that globally, it's not a lot of the renewable energy technologies, investments, research have been pointed towards what is available in the global north. So this is a resource that's available in the global south. So it has not received the level of attention that, for example, solar, wind, hydro, or the conventional renewable energy technologies receive. So it becomes something that we know instinctively. We do it. I mean, we've cooked with bioenergy for years. But we don't see it as a business opportunity, number one, for investment.
Yep.
And then number two, we don't have the data, we don't have visibility. Our main source of energy, when you look at the pie chart of the country, is bioenergy. It's 67%, and that is a number that nobody can vouch for.
Wow.
Because it's based on estimates.
It could be higher, essentially, is what we are saying.
Yes.
It could be higher.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at solar and geothermal.
Yes.
Between the two,
Yeah.
because those are the ones that take up the majority of the conversation,
Yes.
even if they don't take up the majority of what is available.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Between the two, which is cheaper to produce and then, of course, to pay to consume?
Solar is cheaper. Solar is the cheapest. Well, actually, not solar. Biogas is the cheapest way to generate electricity.
So between geothermal
yeah.
and solar,
Yes.
solar is cheaper.
Yeah.
But geothermal takes up the bulk of what we use in the country today.
Yeah. Geothermal runs 24 hours.
Yeah.
98% of the time in the year. Solar is available, if we are lucky, for a maximum of about 2,890 hours a year.
How many days are those?
So those are, in terms of days, okay, I think of it in terms of, that would be about
Months.
120 days, full 24-hour days.
Oh, wow.
120.
So what happens the other days?
It's darkness, it's night, there's no sun.
So it's just about 4 months a year.
So yeah, but it's still a window of production. Let me give
Right.
an example. Russia and Ukraine, that's where our wheat comes from.
Yeah.
They only produce between May to August. And they produce enough to meet their own needs and to export to us, who have the
global needs.
production capacity for 12 months.
Say that again.
Take a break. 28 minutes to 10. It's a grey-haired Thursday in the Situation Room. So we started with a grey-haired man called Professor Ngure Wamochofi. He was here at 7. Then we had another grey-haired man called Joseph Nganga at 8. Now we have another grey-haired man, Andrew Amadi. He's the CEO of the Kenya Renewable Energy Association, having another renewable energy conversation, looking at the opportunities and looking at also what we are missing and what could lead us to that risk that you're saying as an association. We could head the South Africa route. We could have power rationing in less than 12 months' time. Solar is huge. We have geothermal, huge. We've got wind, renewable, again, huge. But we all always think about investment coming from government, but we don't think about investment from the private sector and how we can also reduce our own power bills as individual, at household level, at domestic level, at local factory level. Please point us in that direction.
Yeah.
What is it that we can do too?
So I'd like to say energy efficiency comes before renewable energy. You cannot have affordable energy if it's not efficient. So at the individual level, you look at your bill, then I'm sure people ask, so where's all this
Coming from.
coming from? Where's this? A lot of the times we
Kwani
delegate
napika
the
chips
blame.
kwangu?
We delegate the blame to Kenya Power and the government, and that's it. But we don't look at ourselves and say, what am I consuming that I could either reduce
Yes.
or I could get from a different source at a cheaper cost? So the problem we have with energy is that all energy is sold in different units, and only one of them is an energy unit. That's kilowatt hours for electricity or tokens or units, whatever you want to call them. Petrol is sold in liters. LPG is sold in kilograms, biogas is sold in meters cubed, solar is sold in watts, wind in watts. So you cannot be able to reconcile and say, hey, this is expensive from an informed perspective. So that's one of the things we've done, is to publish the energy price index, which converts all types of energy at the point of sale to the same units, so that you can see a 6 meter cubed biogas system is actually the equivalent of 0.1 shillings per kilowatt hour of the energy that it will produce over its lifetime. And then if I use biogas for cooking, then my cost of energy is about 8 shillings per kilowatt hour. LPG is 19 shillings per kilowatt hour. Kenya Power is 32 shillings per kilowatt hour. So when you have this kind of understanding, and unfortunately this is something that is privy to those who are certified energy managers, that's what we do. So when you have this understanding, then you can be able to now say, you know what, if I'm cooking these chips and this is 33 shillings, and you told me that biogas is 8 shillings only, so that would be like 60% cost reduction. Then yes, it's possible. We've been doing this for industry since 2006 after the KEREA and the UNDP JEF project for energy efficiency. And today it's available. This is information that should be available to the individual end user. So in the renewable energy sector, a lot of this has already been factored in at design. So let's take a solar home system that will provide you with lighting for a 2-bedroomed house. It will cost you outright maybe 20,000 shillings. Or you can pay on a plan with a deposit of 1,000 shillings and then pay 40 shillings for the next 400 days, or whatever the number of days comes to. If you go to connect to the grid for a 2-bedroomed house, you are right next to the road. There's a transformer. You will get a quotation of, if you are lucky, 500,000 shillings. You have bought outright the lighting that you require with 20,000 shillings. So that is the efficiency cost of energy.
If you installed this solar system to power your house,
yes,
would it do everything else?
No, that's lighting. So let's go step by step. So if you want to look at it and say, where's my money going? I'll tell you for free. It's that instant shower. That is the biggest cost, mostly for depending on the type of house. If you're going to a bigger, high-end, maybe it's the jacuzzi, but it's going to be heating and cooling.
So the instant shower, biggest consumer.
Yes.
Okay. Next.
Maybe refrigerator, because it runs 24 hours.
Okay.
After that, the Wi-Fi modem. It actually consumes more than the TV.
That thing.
Because it's running throughout, consuming maybe 18-20 watts.
Okay.
The TV goes on and off.
Per what?
Sorry?
Per what? I'm running home to switch
The
off
router.
per 24 hours?
Yes, so if it's 15 watts, then that's in 1 hour, it will be 15 watt hours. Which is, I think, okay, I promised not to speak in jargon, but that's like energy is a function of power and time.
Yes.
So that's why you have your kilowatt hours.
Yes.
So depending on how much power you're consuming over what period of time
that's
your
how
cost
your
goes up.
cost.
And that's why the instant shower is the most consuming, because it consumes a lot of power.
Okay. So lighting is coming.
Light is very little. Light you can run on solar 100%.
So if I paid this 20,000 shillings upfront to take care of this lighting bill, I'm taking care of
and charging your phone.
I'm taking care of the smallest part of my electricity bill.
Yeah.
So if I start looking at it, okay, so I'll still need to go to that transformer guy to give me that quotation for 500,000
No,
shillings.
before you go there, I'll ask you, what else do you want? Do you want to power a fridge?
Yeah, I
do you
want
need
everything.
fridge? So let's go step by step.
I want everything.
If you want everything,
I want to not pay 500,000 shillings to that guy.
So go get a standalone fridge. That's 110,000. It will stand alone. It will never be connected to anything, and it will remain cool for 20 years.
What do you mean?
It's a standalone fridge. So
It's
you're
a
not
fridge.
You're not plugging
Solar
it
fridge.
in. It's a solar
It doesn't
fridge.
plug into anything.
Okay.
Standalone means what?
You can put it
It
in
has
the
no
field
wires.
with no connection. It will remain cool for 20 years.
Wait. Wait. Okay. But that initial 20,000 I have to have so that I have this solar thing.
No,
No.
20,000 is the lighting.
It was just for lighting. So he's taking us now, if you want all these other things.
If you want to be fully
what
loaded,
else? So
everything.
first, buy that standalone. Are they available in this country?
They're available. Kenya is the largest market. Again, those are the
Oh,
systems
yeah,
that are
you
being
said
sold.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So standalone fridge, no need for electricity, no need for it. Just stands alone and cools your things.
Yeah, but it's getting energy to cool it from.
But
The
not
sun,
from
the
power.
sun.
Solar.
Yeah, so there's a
It has a
20,000.
panel.
There's a 20,000 coverage or it
Not
comes its
20.
own.
This is different.
This is
This is
different.
110,000, out of which 51% is taxes.
Come on.
The taxes are more than the cost of the solar panels.
No, that's okay.
Yes.
The fuel guys brought us up to speed on this cost.
We know how
Okay.
that thing
Yeah,
is
we-
done.
So
know how that thing
110K,
works.
you have this fridge.
You have the fridge.
Okay.
And it
now
comes
let's
with
power
its-
this other thing. Let's power the router and the TV and the instant. Okay, let's remove the instant because you'll tell me put solar water heating.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Chargers, router.
Yeah.
Basically,
so electronics.
Yeah.
Give me a
Yes.
solution because you gave us, it's a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah.
So give me this renewable, cheap, affordable energy solution for this 2-bedroom house that will now give me this independence
Yeah.
of depending on this big grid that's very expensive and unreliable.
Yeah. So you go into the solar home system space, and today they are standardized. You go to any major distributor, Davis and Shatcliffe, Chloride Solar, Kenya, you'll find packages that
Okay.
will tell you this package. I have one. I've been using it since 2020 when we were working from home. I decided I'll have a solar system to power my electronics. So you can package it based on, you give the comfort level. You want this thing available 24 hours. Okay, say fine. So we know how much the laptop uses. So we can be able to compute and give you what we call a period of autonomy. That means if the sun doesn't show up for whatever reason, maybe an eclipse, I don't know, apocalypse, whatever the reason, if the sun doesn't show up,
We're going
you will have
anyways.
power
There's
for,
mandamano on that side.
yes, you will have power for say 48 hours. And we
Right.
did this for healthcare, for a maternal and newborn unit, because we said that incubator cannot go
It's
off.
critical.
So it has 48 hours of autonomy. Then you say, okay, maybe the sun doesn't come. It's not likely, but maybe it doesn't come, or it's not enough. Then on your last line of defense, you have a generator. That if this doesn't happen, then the generator will run. It will just power the battery. So it's not powering and consuming a lot of energy. It's just topping up so that these things continue to run.
Okay.
Right.
So you have a hierarchy
Right.
of
Sure.
interventions.
So the infrastructure needed to run this or to power this thing literally is what would be expensive, but it is a one-off kind of thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so you're buying your standalone fridge, you're setting up your lighting in the house, you're doing 1, 2, 3 other things.
Yeah.
If you had 100 shillings to spend for solar units, let's call them that.
Yeah.
So trying to simplify this thing, right?
Yeah.
And you had 100 shillings that you're spending on your tokens that you use now.
Yeah.
How much would you use? Compare the two now
Yeah.
between what we're currently using
Yeah.
and if it was solar powered. Where are we now in terms of this 100 shillings?
Okay. It's a good question because I just answered this question 2 months ago. That let's say that 100 shillings will buy you the connection one time and 1 year of electricity tokens. Let's just say for
Okay.
because use the 100 shillings. I would have gone with the 100,000, but it's okay. So
No.
if it will
100,
buy you 1 year plus the connection, the cost of solar to buy you 20 years of electricity, including changing the battery after 10 years.
Ah, voila.
So the cost of solar
It's 20 times
is-
cheaper.
the same as that 100 unit that will buy you connection plus 1 year of electricity.
Okay.
So that's how expensive it is, and you'd have gotten 20 years of electricity
From solar.
from solar.
From solar.
How about that?
But then there are investors in the country who actually even help you with this upfront cost,
Yeah.
where you can now pay over time.
Yes.
And these are now the models that are in the market.
Yeah.
How do those ones work?
So how they work is that it's initially technical problem that you've described what you want, and then it becomes a financial problem that you're told this total thing will cost you 2.5 million.
Yeah.
So you don't have the 2.5 million, but you have 50,000 a month that you can be able to pay the disposable income.
Yeah.
So what the investor does is they say that I will put my money down. So they will take their investment, put it down, and say, if you are to take a loan from the bank at, say, 13% interest, and you pay over 5 years, then you'll have paid the total cost of this product. So if they take that risk, they take that loan, then through your repayments, they're now able to pay back that loan, and then over and above that, depending on how it is structured. If you structure it that they will just pay for the electricity, then they know that I have paid for it in the first 5 years, so I'm going to earn profit for the next 15 years. So it becomes a way of getting literal passive income.
Right.
So that's the model that they go for. There are also those who want to sell equipment. So they go for margins. You buy it, they sell it through a financial institution. The financial institution buys that cost. They know when you're buying a solar panel, you know this, I have prepaid for electricity for the next 20 years. And this is my cost per unit. Then I say, okay, who needs this electricity? Let me stick it on your roof. I put a meter, you pay me back. So I'm able to wait because I know I can repay it in 3 to 5 years. But I also know that I can get an extended loan at a lower interest over a longer period of time. And all that means is that I'll just make more margins.
I'm curious, how did we end up in this lead position where we are number one everywhere we are looking? We are number one in this renewable energy space. How did we get there?
Was it by accident or by design?
Yes.
It was by design. It was actually by design, because what happened is in 2000 we experienced the worst drought.
Yes.
Power was reliant on hydro. So that was the year since independence that Kenya's economy actually shrunk in that year. That's the direct impact of electricity on production. So we learned and we said, okay, we don't have the oil resources at that time. What do we have that we can use? So since 1940s, we've been looking at geothermal. The first geothermal in KEREA exploration was in the 50s. 1981, we were generating power with geothermal. So we looked and said, we have still got a huge capacity. Why don't we shift our base load, that's the electricity that is running throughout, from hydro to geothermal that is more stable. So that was done. That you had your KEREA 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now we have a base load that is geothermal.
Right.
So at least at that level, there was a response. So in this same momentum, and again, the same year, 2002, after that drought, we are looking at alternative sources because generators are expensive. So that's how we said, okay, if we are to grow a market, we need standards. So that's how the Technical Standards Committee on Solar Panels and the Kenya Renewable Energy Association is created. So now we're aware that there's need for developing this renewable energy. And because we did not have an abundance of other options, hydro, we are a water scarce country, so we now had to leverage on what it is that we have. And that's how we have now another price, the largest wind farm in Africa, which is now producing, not majority, at least 17% of the electricity now is coming from wind. So it was the need and the geographical advantage that wind is not by accident that it is incident here at that high level. The solar, we are right on the equator. Geothermal, we are on the Rift Valley. So we have all these geographical advantages that are working in our favor.
So actually, technocrats in government designed this and said, let's go.
Yeah.
And policymakers said, yes, let's go.
Yes.
And in a short span of 10, 15 years, we had turned this thing upside down from a point where we were only relying on hydro to a point where our base is actually coming from
wind and geothermal.
Wind and geothermal. See? This country is not so bad, Bana.
No wonder people steal money, it never gets finished.
Allah. Now, let's come to that topic. We run a risk of power rationing.
Yeah.
Please explain.
So, I've been tracking the peak demand because for me, it's an indicator. It's also a market. because you're selling renewable energy, you need to know what's the available, realizable market. So tracking peak demand for over the last, since maybe 2010, and looking at the supply opportunities. So for a period of time, we had a peak demand of about 1,600, and we had supply installed capacity of over 3,300 megawatts. So we thought we are safe. We said we have excess power. We have all of these agreements on capacity charge because of that excess power thing. But then come 2019, 2020, and we're having 2-3 years of successive drought, and we wipe out 80% of the hydro.
Yeah.
So now we're seeing there's a huge gap deficit, that we're not at 3,200, we are actually at 2,330 peak demand supply.
Big supply.
That's available on the grid. At the same time, we are retiring some of the thermal power plants.
Yeah.
We're not replacing them immediately with alternatives.
Yeah.
So as this is happening, there's the attrition, and the demand is growing very, very consistently at about 110, 120 megawatts a year. So in 2022, we had already hit 2,200 megawatts peak demand. Available supply, 2,330. It includes hydro. If it doesn't rain, and we don't know for sure if it would be, and not just rain, but rain enough.
Sufficient rainfall.
Sufficient rainfall over a period of time. If it's too fast, it'll all go to the sea. It has to be time to store. Then we can be able to prop up the hydro. But at the same time, we are saying that during the day, if we shifted the day demand from the grid,
The main grid.
to use solar that's available everywhere, then we save on the water for the hydro that can then be used, say, in the evening when we need all of this.
Right.
So come evening, 7 p.m., instant showers, lights are coming on, especially instant showers. The moment you put it on, each one is about 4 to 5 kilowatts. And there are about 1 million people within that time coming on. You have created an instant demand of 500 megawatts.
Yeah.
All the thermal power stations are on. They're not coming on to power industries. They're coming on to power instant
showers.
Instant shower.
So if you shifted and you heated your water during the day and it's stored in a container that is well insulated, you'll have hot water at night. And it's cheaper. The cost, again, 32 shillings instant shower per kilowatt hour. Cost of solar, 5 shillings per kilowatt hour.
Same instant shower.
Same temperature.
Same shower.
Same temperature,
Same
same
shower,
volume of
rather.
water.
Yeah.
That's
For
the
the same
comfort
body.
level. Yes.
Wow.
What? So if we don't do something, we are likely to have a problem?
Yeah, we already have a problem. I was in the rural areas last week. The power supply in Nairobi, it's consistent because we've had a centralized system where everything is pointed to Nairobi,
Yeah.
including the single largest power plant, Lake Turkana Wind. It's not supplied in Marsabit. It's not supplied in Turkana.
Comes to Suswa.
Comes to
Suswa,
Nairobi. Comes to Nairobi. So Nairobi gets a good supply. Western Kenya was connected through the old system with the hydros through Nyahururu. It doesn't have the capacity to meet today's demands because those were 1980s demands. So there's a connection between Bomet to Kisumu transmission that can now link all KEREA to Western Kenya. So you do that, which is ongoing. That peak demand, now you have unlocked suppressed demand.
Right. The KPLC MD mentioned that line.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
And
Yes,
I remember
but
you
when
asking
mentioned it appeared
Moroni
that
going
KPLC
straight from one corner
looked
to
for
the
the
other.
longest possible route to
To get there.
get there. I mean, the distance they talk about is short, but KPLC go there, then come back, then go further back, and
Because
then go back.
previous projects were not
Again, the
Andrew,
principle
we
is
thank you very much for
efficiency.
joining us. Our time is up. Andrew Amadi will be back again. He's the CEO of the Kenya Renewable Energy Association. You will be a regular on this show. Asante sana for joining us today.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.